Welcome back to day 59 of our chess journey to 1500 ELO on chess.com. Let's just jump ahead into our browser and find an opponent. So today we are playing with the black pieces and we get... Which move are we going to see? We get one e4 and we'll play the Sicilian. Today we are playing against a guy called Blunda from the US. I think I've actually got this move here in my notes on Chessbook. I can't quite remember what the response was supposed to be in my repertoire because I have not reviewed this enough times yet. I would like to argue for fianchettoing the bishop here. I think that's probably okay. I just want to make sure this doesn't run into this move. If the opponent takes, we can probably play here. Or can we? I don't think we can, honestly. So instead, let's develop the knight here and hit the undefended pawn. Our opponent pushes d3. And now I think we can play this. This is an interesting structure. We get the kind of stone wall-ish Sicilian. I'm not quite sure as to what this is called. I can't quite remember. Either way, I think we'd probably want to keep on going with normal developing moves. This seeks to grab this powerful outpost. We want to castle and play this and get our light squared bishop developed. I don't think the order of the moves should matter all that much, but I would like to argue for playing the knight up first to potentially get a powerful square straight off the bat. Now I think our opponent might consider playing like this, but that might be good for us, to be honest, because considering our opponent's pawns here, if they all end up in light squares and they trade off their dark squared bishop, we might be able to take advantage of that, because then their other bishop will be quite weak, as it can't get around their own pawns. This move seeks to play this, I think. I don't see an alternative. Or it might intend to open up the board here. If we play this, or rather I meant they might want to close down the board, because this might be met by this, and then it's difficult for either player to move on the queen side. Well, I don't think this move is playable yet anyways, as it would lose a pawn for our opponent. So I think we can castle. If we see this, I think we take, and this looks like a free pawn to me at least. I'm not seeing a follow-up. If we get this check, we just come back here. So let's castle. So what could we expect here from our opponent? This might be an idea, trying to come in here and utilize this potential outpost, which they do. And they might threaten to come in here as well. Now we get kind of a symmetrical structure on the queen side. I am honestly a bit curious as to whether this is possible. But don't we just take here? I think we might be able to. And if this pawn is pushed now, we might even, in some variations here, have a knight move that reveals an attack against this knight with our bishop here. But I would like to get our last minor piece into the game. Well, e6 might be a move. I don't like the moves along this diagonal. Apart from this, the computer might bless this trade here. I don't quite like it, as I don't want to give up the bishop, especially when our pawns are on dark squares here. So instead, maybe bishop to d7 here. And then we might seek to build up some space here on the queen side, get our knight into this. Our opponent copies us. Now this knight is defended by the pawn, or the bishop rather. This might become an idea. Now can we jump in here? That's the question. If they take... Honestly, if we are to move in there, I would like to move this knight first. We don't have good forwards mobility. Could we come back around like this and target this square here? This is an interesting maneuver, which allows us to play on this diagonal as well. Let's go for this. Just have a double look at this, but this is probably still just a free pawn, I think. I'm not seeing their follow-up. We might get pressured a bit. Let's say the rook slides over, hitting our knight. Then we can move up here even and cement our knight in place. So let's come back here and try to improve this knight and open up our bishop. Now this is playable without damaging our pawn structure. I'm curious as to whether our opponent here is going to try to play on the king side, or if they will try to keep their ideas on the queen side going. They don't have a lot going for them on the king side, but this bishop is doing something, and they might try to double up with the queen to trade off ours. Now we don't have rook to e8 as an idea, because the knight has come here, so we can't slide on over here to meet this move with this. The knight moves up, the queen rather, and this I think forces this probably. And then we have to evaluate, is this ideal for us or not? I think it might be pretty good. Then we get the bishop in here. And we can replace our other knight with this here. Maybe coming in like this, for example. I think we'll have to see what we do. This might be a move, and if we take, they open up the rook. This move might actually be playable now because we don't have this knight here. Let's have a look at this. This would open up our opponent's rook, but we might not have a good alternative here. Oh, they just open up here, I guess probably preparing to play this move, removing our bishop. So what could we do here? I would like to get this knight up. This should be our best square, I think. If they go here, we can probably even replace the bishop with a knight. So here, 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 if they take, we just come in and get a powerful position. I would have liked for this d pawn to not be here, or at least to be on another square, so we could have opened up and hit this weakness on d3. The bishop does move in, but in another way than I thought it would. It doesn't change a lot though. We just come in like this, I think. Even still. If they take, we take, and the situation remains the same pretty much. Now this knight is a bit awkward because our opponent probably moved it back here so they could recapture with a knight if we take here. I would like to get time for a move like queen to c7 to double up our rooks, or connect them at least, and then we can start playing with some pawn mobility here on the queen side. This might still be a move. I'm not quite sure as to how good it is, but right now it's probably not the best move. Okay, we get this idea. I guess we just slide our rook over. Our opponent does not quite have a threat as of yet with this bishop. And if they ever do, we can probably just slide back, but we don't want to give up our position currently, I'm pretty sure. Let's slide over and see what we end up doing. This bishop here is doing a whole lot of great work because our opponent's ideas here, well, now they can't push the pawn because we are not pinning the pawn to the rook. So let me have a look here. Is a4 a move? Takes, takes. This doesn't change a whole lot. I would like the knight to be here though, but I'm not seeing a good way of getting it there. We could prepare a similar idea to this. Let's say we go like this, they go here. Could we ignore their threat? We might be able to. If they take, we might even have bishop takes, vacating this square for our knight, which I think might be pretty good for us actually. But does this have to be played, or could we play this instead? Let's say we get this, 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 and if they take, we still get the same idea, while having developed our queen and connected our rooks, which I think I like a bit better. So let's move the queen first. This, and we can probably just, as I mentioned, follow our plans. king moves over. This might mean our opponent seeks to play f4, which is an interesting idea at least. I don't think we have to react just now though. I think we'll play a6 here. They will play f4. Or might I have misevaluated this a bit? Not necessarily, I think. If we go here, they push. Our knight might be forced onto a suboptimal square. But let's say we go here, okay? Then this pawn is quite weak. They don't want to take us though, and we probably don't want to take them. This is a bit trickier than I hoped for it to be. Maybe even just jumping back immediately might be okay. But if we do jump back, then this we might not have to move this knight yet, to be honest. I would like to argue for playing up here. f5. As I mentioned, I think we might just be able to come back here. That doesn't look very pretty, but after moving the rook, we can come back around like this, for example, which would be a decent square for our knight. This should never be played, I think. So let's hit the pawn like this. Just want to make sure we don't have this move, but that's horrible. I'm not seeing a way for our knight to move from this square. So I think this will be our move here. Now what happens if they push? Then I think we just take, and that's a free pawn. Even like this, should be pretty good. We might have e6 here to hit the pawn. And we get this. Now this might be somewhat critical. Which pawn do we take with? I think both moves might be okay. This opens up a potential way of trading rooks here. But it is going to leave us a bit weak along this diagonal later on. And this leaves this pawn as a target. So I'd like to play here and then come up and trade rooks. And then I think I prefer our situation here after trading. Luckily, our opponent's pieces here can't quite join in on this attack here. This bishop can't come in here, the queen is cut off. This knight can't do a whole lot, so we are probably just going to play with the rooks for the time being at least. Now it's important this knight stays here when we occupy the f-file, so we don't lose material. I hope I have evaluated this correctly, but it doesn't look losing to me at least. Our king is a bit open here, but we are currently in control of the diagonals here, or they are closed down by this pawn, for example. Now we might get a move like this, and then when we take, their queen might try to join in. But then we would have had the bishop move here. So our opponent's knight jumps in here. This is an idea. Can we take this pawn? If they jump in, honestly, I'm not quite liking this. This was a pretty interesting move by our opponent. But what happens if we ignore this and come in like this? Then this, the knight can jump in here. This would threaten this pawn and a check. So expecting this move, we might honestly want to move our bishop, so this move doesn't fork our knight or our pawn and queen rather. But this loses control over this diagonal here, so then our opponent's bishop can move in and pressure us. So how about we go about the position like this, perhaps? Then the queen comes in. So I'm seeing every move here has a setback. So I'd like to simplify this a bit, perhaps, and come in with the rook. This move is still quite scary. In hindsight here, I think we might have had e6. Although I'm not 100% sure. I think here we probably have to come back with our queen to defend this pawn, or we have to take, but this doesn't change the situation. This might be first. So let's play it. And then we can look at e6 afterwards. It's not a fun move to play, because our opponent might come in for some counterplay here, which is not quite ideal, but we'll have to deal with those ideas as they come. They take. This should be pretty first. Now our opponent can occupy this, and our queen is pinned. I would like to play this as quickly as possible and get our queen onto e7 here. This can't be played because of this, which would fork us. So I think we might have to go back to d8. And then this might be a move. So currently our opponent is going for all-out aggression. Which seems to be working out, at least on the clock, but I'm hoping we have some way of turning this around. This, and our opponent cannot go here because we control this with those pieces. They might have to come back this way, or here. We still have some tension on the queen side, but that can be resolved on another move, I'm pretty sure. It's nice this pawn on b2 is hanging, if the queen moves at least. I'm trying to identify immediate threats here, but luckily I'm not seeing anything too vicious by our opponent. I would like to improve this knight though, as currently it's nothing more than a target. So I was looking at something like this, getting our knight onto this outpost and having our bishop here. This seems like a good configuration, but this gives up the idea here of playing with e6. So the knight might still be staying there for a while, at least for 3 more moves. And I'm honestly a bit unsure as to whether that's good or bad for us. We might just have to see. The problem is if we play here, our opponent might try to pin us. But then once we play this, and if we jump in, we just trade, I guess. I think this might help us a bit. Now we can hit this bishop with tempo. Let's go for this. I don't want to spend too much time as we are quickly running out of our most important resource. This is a move I just realized. Well, that's not quite ideal. It might not be the end of the world though. We can't go here because of this. Oh no, it's not a fork because of this knight. So this might be playable. No, yeah, it is. Ooh, I got worried. I thought our opponent might win our queen like this, but then we have the knight move. This knight has to go. It's causing us too many headaches. Now this is a move even. And then we would have to go here to defend the bishop perhaps. Or if our opponent goes here, we might have this. If they take the rook, can we trap the knight? This might trap the knight. Taking away those squares here and hitting it. Position here is starting to get loaded with tactics, which I'm honestly not sure which player it helps the most. Who does this favor? Speaking of tactics, our opponent goes for this. This capture is forced, because we don't want to lose our queen. Now though, no, we can't quite pin this as the rook is defended by the bishop. I'm honestly really disliking our position. I would have liked to jump in here, but this bishop is controlling stuff now. Is this favorable for us if they trade like this? We get isolated in double pawns? I think not. We can't move our queen here or here. Honestly, I'm feeling quite strangled in this position. They might even play like this and try to come down for a checkmate here. So the best idea I'm seeing here is honestly this. Coming up and defending here, moving our queen off, queen up there and preparing rook to f8. We might see this move now though. So there might have been an argument for h5, but that's going to open up our king to an uncomfortable degree. This looks horrible. This g6 pawn would be weak. We might be able to play this, but I'm not quite convinced. Although, as I mentioned, this might be the best idea to prevent the pieces from getting in. The second we play our queen here, I think this is going to get quite tempting. But then this would actually be a proper pin, because this rook would be undefended. And then we might be able to play by coming over here. And I'm not quite sure as to what our ideal follow-up is going to look like. Either way, it's hopefully going to look okay. This, and we capture with a pawn. This can't be played. What happens here? We take with the pawn. They take. And we just take with this pawn. We should not take with the bishop. But now this knight might get pinned to our king, and we can't move to the corner because of the bishop. Now our opponent seeks to come in like this. But our queen should probably be able to defend this, as I mentioned. We come in here and cut off this checkmating square. And then this might not be all that bad. Well, we are still down a pawn though, but a pawn might not be all that bad. We just don't want to get checkmated. And worst case, well, worst case we lose, right? But the second worst scenario is going to be a draw. Now this is a move they can't take because of our knight here. Or at least so I'd like to say, but my arrows are at least not indicating so. This is going to allow this move even. This knight here is doing a lot of work. Is this a move? I just realized this might be a nasty idea. If we move the queen, then they take, and this would be checkmate. So what would our move be in response to this? Honestly, I can't see a good move. This is such a cold-hearted move. Oh, the best response might be this. So the rook can cover this. I don't think I see an option here apart from playing rook to f7. Which would mean we would still be pinned, but we would not get checkmated immediately. Then our queen can't come in here easily. This would take 2 moves. But that's still better than getting checkmated. This is still a potential idea. There might be a back rank issue for our opponent. At some point at least. But they don't have to move the bishop if we come in here, because this would favor them. They protect the back rank. I think I want to play this move, to be honest. No, this doesn't work. This does lead to some simplifications, which probably don't favor us, but we don't have a lot of time now, and this will force some pieces of the board. I'm expecting this move. And we might get this. I'm not quite sure. Then we would have this file and we would take. Our pawns might not be all that pretty, but there won't be a checkmating threat at least. The bishop might take, but that's a bit passive. It does. This should be first. And now we have to win or draw this probably somewhat worse endgame. But I'm confident we might have some chances. I would like to get our queen onto a better square. Luckily here our opponent can't quite use the center pawns, but they do have this 2-on-1 majority on the queen side. I would like to come in here and threaten the pawns. This bishop is not doing a whole lot, but by moving here we might even be able to activate the bishop in another way like this. Luckily our opponent is starting to use a lot of time, so they might start to stress out at some point. Let's move a bit quickly. This is a threat. Our opponent's queen, well, they could try to come in like this, threatening to come down here, for example. They don't. I want to play quickly here. We are running out of time. Now this pawn here is difficult to defend. The only way of doing so is by playing this incredibly awkward move. But our opponent goes for this. Let's have a look here. They could get our bishop by force, but we would get theirs too. Oh, we don't have time to calculate. Yes, we have to go for this. This is going to happen. expecting this to be the best move. This would not work all that very well, to be honest. They might grab here, which would probably work too, but I'm expecting this check to grab the bishop. But then we get their bishop, as I mentioned, and this might not be the end of the world. Hopefully. We get checked here instead. So let's go for this. They might try to play for a perpetual, but I'm not quite seeing why. They should be the ones in the better position. We have to come back. If they come back down, we just go back to h6. They could take the pawn. Then we could get this position, but our opponent wants to draw the game apparently. We are in a horrible spot, I'm pretty sure, so this is favorable for us. It's not as fun as alternatives here. Well, is this actually a drawn game? It might be. Well, either way, Blunda, thanks a lot for the game. Let's have a look at the game analysis. I see we made some mistakes today, so I'm curious as to how we should have played differently. We do have a quite similar accuracy here. We played with 74.2 and our opponent played with 75.2. We got this, all quite normal moves. This was good for us. This was good. Yeah, the computer did favor this move. I guess this bishop just doesn't have a whole lot to do with the pawns here kind of killing it. But this was somewhat okay as well. The immediate move here would have been better. I guess maybe playing with both knights here and forcing a knight on this outpost perhaps. Either way, we went for this. The pawn capture seems to have been better. Well, this was still pretty decent. Stuff was in the balance. I didn't consider this move, I think. The computer doesn't quite like it here, but we might have had some good remaneuvering ideas. We went back here. This was not necessarily ideal. This was a mistake because of the knight move. So this was a critical position. e6 was apparently best, or bishop to c6 was decent as well. We considered both moves. I didn't quite like either, but both of them would have been better than this because the move we played did not address our opponent's threat at all. So we got this position, we went back, and this was decisively losing. Let's have a look here. In this position we had -3, and this was a bad move. Our best move was going to b8 with our queen. Or now the computer says f6 with the bishop. Coming back here and giving up the bishop here. This was bad. I just entirely missed the idea here of bishop takes. But in this position we weren't as losing. The best approach here was d5. If d5 and if they push in this position, cementing the bishop in place, this is apparently a good move. Don't ask me why. To me, this just looks dangerous, setting up for x-rays. Or discovered attacks, rather. Well, we played like this. There was apparently a tactic here. And this is what I looked at, but I thought we might have this. Oh, this is disgusting. Coming back with the queen and forcibly winning a piece. I don't think our opponent would have found that, to be honest. Well, this simplification seems to have worked out for us, because now we actually got some drawing chances. The best move here, oh, this was a mate in 3. Oh, they could have went back. Oh, we are so lucky our opponent did not spot this. This. And this move is first. H4. Well, honestly, this is a bit difficult to spot. And then the finishing blow would have been this move. The queen cuts us off. Well, not there. Like this, and the pawn assists on the checkmate. But I'm quite surprised our opponent went for the perpetual, though. They also had a mate in 7, following... Oh, that's not it. Bishop to d1 was a good move. Saving the bishop and setting up for checkmate threats. While we were just in a losing position, and our opponent gave us a draw. Well, I guess we take those, but it's not quite ideal that we got to a losing position. But we managed to salvage it, but not by our own hand. Well, anyways guys, that's our game for today. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. Bye bye!